The story of black hair did not end with the afro of the 1960s or the natural hair movements that rose around it. As the world moved into the late 20th and early 21st centuries, black hair entered an entirely new battlefield, one shaped not by chains or whips, but by media, fashion, workplaces, and global perception. The crown that survived slavery and colonialism now faced the complexities of a world obsessed with representation, aesthetics, and commercial influence. And once again, black hair will become a symbol of identity, of power, and of a struggle that refused to be silenced. With globalization came visibility. Television, magazines, movies, and later social media created a digital world where everything could be seen and judged instantly. Black hairstyles, once misunderstood and dismissed, suddenly found themselves at the center of global attention. But this attention came with contradictions, so sharp they cut deep. A black woman wearing braids could still be sent home from school. A black man could be denied employment for having locks. Black children could be suspended simply for wearing the hairstyles their ancestors carried for generations. Yet in that same moment, celebrities outside the culture appeared on magazine covers wearing those same braids, praised as trendsetters and fashion icons. This was a world black people were forced to navigate, a world where their cultural heritage, once mocked, was now admired only when detached from them. It was a painful reminder. Society wanted the beauty of blackness, without the burden of black people. As black communities fought for acceptance, a new tension spread across the world. The debate over cultural appropriation, from cornrows being renamed boxer braids, to bantu knots being labeled mini buns. Black hairstyles were being rebranded and commercialized by companies, celebrities, and fashion houses that adopted the aesthetics but ignored the roots. To many black people, this felt like yet another form of erasure. These styles weren't simply fashionable. They were shaped by centuries of spiritual practices, tribal lineage, cultural identity, resistance during oppression, survival tactics, communal storytelling, ancestral memory. So when outsiders wore these styles without acknowledging the people who created them, and sometimes receiving praise for what black people were punished for, it reopened old wounds. It reminded many of a familiar story. When black people carry their culture, it's often labeled unprofessional. But when others adopt it, it becomes innovative. The argument wasn't about who could wear what. It was about respect, recognition, and historical truth. But while the fashion world attempted to absorb black hairstyles without their meaning, black communities were writing a different story, one of reclamation. In the late 2000s and early 2010s, a movement arose quietly at first, then roared across the globe. It was called the natural hair movement. What began as small online conversations about curl patterns, hair porosity, and protective styles became a cultural awakening. Platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and later TikTok filled with black voices sharing hair journeys, product tips, ancestral history, pride in curls and coils, the importance of representation. For the first time in generations, black people were embracing their natural textures without apology. No more hiding, no more conforming, no more fitting into Eurocentric beauty standards designed to diminish them. The movement was not simply about aesthetics. It was about reclaiming identity, celebrating heritage, and teaching future generations that their natural selves were enough. It was a digital renaissance, where hair became history, education, community, and empowerment all at once. As voices grew louder, society had to respond. Black hair discrimination, long ignored, was now being challenged at institutional levels. The Crown Act emerged, a historic step toward protecting black people from being penalized for their natural hair. One by one, states, countries, employers, and institutions were pushed to acknowledge the simple truth. Discrimination against black hair is discrimination against black people. For centuries, black communities were forced to adapt their hair to gain acceptance. Now, for the first time, the world began to adapt to them. Activists, parents, students, political figures, and everyday individuals joined forces, turning deeply personal experiences into global movements for justice. This was not just a victory for hair. It was a victory for culture, legacy, and humanity. Eventually, the world perception began to shift. Black hair was not just being noticed, it was being understood. Locks were celebrated as symbols of spirituality, discipline, and cultural pride. Braids became recognized as works of ancestral art. Cornrows were honored for their historical significance. Afros returned as statements of power and truth. Band-to-knots resurfaced as roots of African identity. Representation expanded across newsrooms, classrooms, entertainment, business, and political spaces. Black hair, once confined to margins, now stood proudly in the center. The modern crown, shaped by struggle but shining with history, had risen again. But even in its beauty, a deeper silence remained. Because as the world celebrates black hair today, a forgotten chapter still lies in the shadows. What ancient hairstyles were lost time? What kingdoms carried secrets through their braids? What spiritual rituals once defined every strand? What stories have never been told? Or were deliberately erased? The modern crown may be powerful, but the ancient crowns hold mysteries yet uncovered.